We spoke last week about the general principle of meditation, what it's all about. Today we're going to zero in on how meditation has been viewed in a historical context in Judaism. First of all, in Judaism, we believe that every person, and in fact the entire world, even the Torah itself, has two components to it: body and soul. Body and soul. Now when it comes to Torah, the body of the Torah is the code of Jewish law. This is the structure, this is the setup, this is the system that delegates what's the boundaries, what are things that we're supposed to be directed towards. This is the body of the Torah. Outside of this body is beyond the pale of Judaism. Now, coupled with the body, it's not just rigorous ritual. Coupled with it, you need the soul of the Torah, the Hasidic, Kabbalistic look, which provides intellectual meaning of godliness and spirituality. It's not doing things by rote. It's not doing mindless commandments like a ball and chain. It's a whole new approach. What am I doing? What is this bringing to the world? What energy am I tapping into? In order for a person to have a complete service in Judaism, they need both the body and the soul of the Torah. Meditation has been used throughout the ages in Judaism to experience the spiritual in a penetrating manner. From the patriarchs to the prophets, from the sages to the Hasidic masters, our tradition is replete with teaching and teachers of meditation. Many people, when they think of meditation, you think of the East, Hinduism, Buddhism, donning robes. We think about the East. Any idea why that is? We have a very interesting verse towards the beginning of the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, that informs us of something very interesting that happened in the life of Abraham. Abraham, later in his life, has a second wife. There's a concubine. And with this concubine, he has many children. And the verse tells us like this: to the children of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts, and he sent them to the land of the east. Abraham gave them gifts and sent them to the land of the east. The major Torah commentaries say something very interesting. These gifts that Abraham gave to his concubine, the children of his concubine, were not physical gifts, were not gold and silver, but many authorities tell us that they were spiritual gifts, spiritual insights, divine names, secrets that, when used, can manipulate nature, meditation techniques, all the secrets of the Torah were given to them as a gift, and they were sent to the east. One thing that's very interesting, there is a 17th century sage named Menashe ben Israel. And he says that there's a group in the East, in India, a Hindu group, an elite Hindu group, that calls themselves the Brahmins. And they are the elite. They marry only within their community. They are an elite group of Hindus. They call themselves the Brahmins. He says, in one of his famous works, that the secrets that they have, and even the name that they have, Brahmins, comes from their founder, Abraham. Avraham, the Brahmins, this group, of Eastern gurus. These spiritual secrets, where did they get their wisdom from? Abraham. Now, some people may want to take this as license to, let's learn about Eastern meditation. Let's go to our local, Buddhist temple, or read some books on Hindu energy and Hindu meditative practices. This doesn't give license to it. Why? Because it's brought down in several places, including the Zohar, that these teachings, although they started off in a very pure way, these spiritual secrets, these holy names, started off in a pure and holy way, were being used for the right purpose, but over the years became so convoluted and so misconstrued and filled with idolatry that it's almost completely unrecognizable. Now, a lot of times a person says to themselves, well, I've studied Eastern meditation, I've studied this, and it's very similar to things in Judaism. That may be so, and there may be some overlapping points, and now you know where those traces come from. But that doesn't give license to just, as a whole, embark on or endeavor on understanding the depths of other religions. We have it all in Judaism. No need to look anywhere else. So Abraham meditated, knew all sorts of spiritual secrets. Isaac is also described as someone who meditated. When Rivka, his wife, first sees him, he's described as meditating in the fields. One of the few things that we know about Isaac is that he was a digger of wells. A digger of wells is one of the things the Torah informs us of. The commentaries tell us that a digger of wells doesn't only mean that he would take his shovel and dig wells. Rather, he was someone who would delve into the depths of consciousness. He was a meditator. Many of the early holy men that we read about, our forefathers, were shepherds. Why would you take a job as a shepherd? So you can stay in the field and meditate and contemplate. It was customary by the Talmudic sages and the Kabbalists to meditate before prayer and during prayer. In fact, the Code of Jewish Law says, and I'm quoting verbatim, the early pious Jews would go off on their own and work on their spiritual intentions to the point of abstraction from the physical and devotion to the spiritual, and they would get to a level close to prophecy. The Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlis, in his gloss to the Code of Jewish Law, right there, says a practical technique, a practical message, what we should do. Jewish law, what should we do? It says that one should think about, before prayer and during prayer, think about the greatness of God and the lowliness of man. How great God is and how insignificant we are. This is a short meditation that a person is charged to have before prayer and even during prayer. Since the times of the Baal Shem Tov, the Hasidim have carried this legacy forward to the current day. The word that loosely translates to meditation in Hebrew is hitbonenut. Hitbonenut. Hitbonenut has two roots. Every word in Hebrew has a root. It has two which are really one and the same. Hitbonenut from the word boneh, which means to build. And hitbonenut from the word bina, which means to understand. Meditation is about building. Meditation is about understanding. What does it mean? What do we do? Person seriously thinks about a spiritual concept until it deepens their awareness and becomes engraved in their psyche. This is what meditation is. Taking a spiritual concept and engraving it in the psyche, making it a part of life, making it a part of who you are, your being, something that you live with. In Judaism, this idea of meditation and contemplation is expressed in several forms. It's enhanced through Torah study. It's something that's practiced during and before prayer. It's done in a way of introspection, sometimes visualizations, through song, nigun, or focused intent, or other means. In Judaism, we're even given a day where the whole day is meant to meditate. Shabbos, once a week. What do? We cut out all the static of life. My whole day, my whole weekday, go from work to home, listening to the radio, turning on the internet, seeing all sorts of advertisements. Stimuli from everywhere influencing me and becoming part of my day. It's the static that sits in the back of my head. It's the stuff I dream about. Shabbos is a day where we have a disconnect. We take a break from the world. Take a break from creative work. Through clearing out all the static of mundane life, we create a space for spiritual development. If a person doesn't cut out the static through a day like Shabbos, there's never any chance for spiritual development because you're always having the static fighting against you. So Shabbos is a day that's given us, bestowed upon us, that we could have a little time to meditate. And meditation doesn't mean, in our context, putting your legs in any particular position, putting any robes on, lighting candles, putting rocks, sand. Doesn't necessarily mean any of that. It could be just walking on your way to shul. It could be sitting in your seat before you pray. Thinking about some of these concepts, some of the deep spiritual insights of Judaism. And the only way to think about these spiritual insights of Judaism is to learn about these spiritual insights of Judaism. So ultimately, we have a question. We know how it was done in a historical context, what the sages have done, what was done in biblical times. What is, however, the goal? What are we trying to achieve with meditation, besides getting out the static? What's the ultimate goal, let's call it? And how does one do it? Find out next time.